This week's astrology brings some major cosmic shifts from Mercury retrograde changing signs to Venus and Jupiter, the two luckiest planets in the sky, meeting up with one another, and even a Mercury cazimi, which brings a temporary break from Mercury retrograde. So, what does it all mean for you and your zodiac sign? Let's get into it. So, Monday, December 18th brings an interesting connection between Mercury retrograde in Capricorn and Jupiter in Taurus. And that's because these two planets recently already met up in the sky on December 7th, which means that conversations, progress that was taking place on that day will be revisited this day. But Mercury is retrograde. So, there's some sort of revision needing to rethink how you're going to move forward, maybe reflect on conversations that took place, and really decide what feels aligned and genuinely authentic before you choose to move forward. Now, the moon is going to be in Pisces, which always puts us in a more sentimental, compassionate, emotional mood. It heightens our intuition, and it will be making some interesting connections throughout the day. One of my favorite aspects that can take place in the sky is when the moon connects with Venus in a trine. So, the moon in Pisces will form a trine with Venus in Scorpio around 4:30 on Monday. And this is a great time for manifestation, co-creation, asking for what you desire, sharing your feelings, your thoughts with others. There's more receptivity, understanding, and generosity in our interactions. Later on, around 6 p.m., the moon in Pisces is going to clash into Mars and Sagittarius. And so, for my mutable signs, which would be Pisces, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Gemini, you'll feel the effects of this a little bit more intensely. This can bring moments of frustration, conflict, but also an urgency to act. So, just try to tune in and remember we are in a retrograde period. This is a moment to slow down and reflect. And if you feel this urge to take action right now, really get clear on what are the underlying intentions, motives, and reasons for that. And is it truly necessary for you to do so in this moment? And we're going to end the day around 9 p.m. with the moon in Pisces connecting with Uranus and Taurus. And this will bring some sort of pleasant surprise our way. On Tuesday, December 19th, we have our first quarter moon in Pisces, and this is taking place at 27 degrees. So if you have any planets, placements, your rising sign, your midheaven, and any of the mutable signs between 20 or 29 degrees of Virgo, Gemini, Pisces, or Sagittarius, you will feel the effects of this first quarter moon the most intensely. First quarter moons are always about initiating, taking action, especially on the intentions that were set around the new moon. So, our last new moon was last week in the sign of Sagittarius on December 12th. So, think about what were you focused on? What was taking up your energy that day? This is an important time to pivot, redirect your energy, and actually take action on the seeds that you planted. Now, it might be a little harder to get started and motivated at the beginning of the day, and that's because the moon in Pisces is going to form a conjunction with Neptune in Pisces at 6 a.m. So, this creates like the world's sleepiest vibe. So, don't be hard on yourself if you're finding it difficult to get motivated and get going. This is a really important time for you to connect with your intuition, your creativity, explore your fantasies, but not the best time for solid decision making and making progress on any of your goals. But later on, around 1 p.m., the moon in Pisces is going to connect with Pluto in Capricorn. And this always brings an air of empowerment to us. There may be some sort of way in which you are recognizing your own personal growth and evolution. And also coming to terms with the concept of surrender, releasing, and breaking free from the past, but in a compassionate and even graceful way. Emotional conversations will also be more substantial than normal, and you're craving intimacy and depth. The moon is going to enter Aries around 3 p.m., which is a total vibe shift. It is going to make us feel more adventurous, ready to initiate, take action, more courageous. And later on in the evening, around 9:30 p.m., the moon in Aries is going to clash into Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. So, this again will make our Mercury retrograde themes, our personal storylines, more prominent at this moment in time. It's possible you hear from someone from your past. Maybe you learn about a delay or a setback that feels a little disappointing in some way. And this can also kick up communication and especially misunderstandings as well. So, this would be an important time to over communicate because it really won't go well if you or someone else assumes intentions on someone else's behalf. Wednesday, December 20th is kind of an interesting day. So the moon is going to be in Aries, but it is going to be void of course for most of the day, which basically means it's not connecting with any other planets. It's just moving around, traveling throughout the sky aimlessly. So this can be a time where it's really difficult to get motivated. This is not a great time to initiate anything new. Maybe pick up old projects or things you'd started, but really be gentle with yourself if you feel like your motivation is just depleted for whatever reason. Later on, around 5:30 p.m., the moon in Aries will form a conjunction with Chiron in Aries. And Chiron is our wounded healer in astrology that illuminates our own healing journey, as well as our relationship to our ongoing pains and triggers. So, for some, this can be a little bit more of a sensitive time. Maybe you are feeling triggered by someone or something. And for others, this can also represent an important moment on your own healing journey. Maybe you are recognizing your own growth. This can be a really sweet time for vulnerable and raw conversations. And even sharing some of your deep life experiences that you've mostly kept to yourself with someone you love and trust. Now, an energy that we're going to be feeling all day, but it perfects around 11 p.m., will be Venus in Scorpio forming an opposition with Uranus in Taurus. And this is a BFD, and this energy is impossible to go unnoticed. So, Venus is the planet of love, relationships, harmony, and finances. And Uranus is a planet of breakthrough, innovation, disruption, and surprises. So, when these two planets come together, it's possible that you're experiencing sudden shakeups in your relationships. So, for singles, they could meet someone out of the blue. For couples that are on shaky foundation, they may decide to call it quits. For other couples, they may be separated for whatever reason. Maybe they're unable to spend time together if they originally had plans. It can also bring up sudden and unexpected disputes, or also sudden and unexpected exciting events that they're sharing together in their union. In terms of finances, this can also bring a windfall, some money that you didn't expect may be coming in, but it can also act as a sudden drain for your finances as well. Uranus is the planet of unpredictability, so it's really difficult to say how this energy is going to manifest, and it really depends on how these two planets are connecting with the other planets in your birth chart. Now, this is going to also bring you back to March 30th, which was the last time Venus and Uranus met up at the same point in the sky and formed a conjunction. So, look back in your phone, your pictures, your text messages, your journal, your calendar, your photos, and see what was going on for you on March 30th, because similar themes or topics will be illuminated. This is like a full moon moment because Venus and Uranus are sitting across from one another in the sky. I've been journaling along with the planets for over 2 years and tracking my transits, which has been really helpful in me understanding how these planetary events unfold. And for me, anytime Venus and Uranus link up, I find myself connecting with, hearing from, hanging out with someone totally out of the blue and unexpected. And usually I never see that person again or hear from them again for like months or years. Okay, Thursday, December 21st is such a big day that I am just exhausted looking at the list of aspects. The first one we're going to want to pay attention to is Mercury retrograde in Capricorn forming a sextile with Saturn in Pisces, and this is taking place around 4:30 a.m. Now, the reason why this is a cosmic BFD is because these two planets already met before Mercury went retrograde. So they shared a connection on December 2nd. So, any conversations, topics regarding commitments that you were making, responsibilities or obligations that took place around that time are coming up to be revisited today. And just a fun fact for you to know, they will make their final connection on January 18th. So, this is a moment of revision because Mercury is retrograde. So, maybe you're having to revise some of your commitments or contracts or obligations, but then it will come back over and trace over these steps on January 18th when you'll have more clarity and feel more grounded in your decision making. Later on, around 5 p.m., the moon in Aries is going to form a square with Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto is the planet of power, crisis, catharsis, death, rebirth, transformation. It's a lot. And this can stir up emotional wounds, issues related to jealousy, obsession, fixation, power, and control. There may be an increased desire to control your surroundings, your environment, or other people, only for you to realize that the only way to really work with Pluto's energy is to surrender. This can bring a moment that kind of feels like it cracks you out of your shell, and it can feel cathartic and healing after you move through and process and acknowledge some of the deeper feelings that you've been burying. Okay, but don't worry because around 6:45 p.m., the moon in Aries is going to form a trine with the sun in Sagittarius. And this is one of my other favorite aspects that takes place in astrology because the moon is our inner self, the sun is our outer self, and when they connect in a supportive trine, sparks fly. Coming through into fire signs, this really stirs up an exciting, adventurous, a flirty energy. And there's more harmony in our interactions, and it's possible we're experiencing forward momentum and progress in our lives. Later on, around 7 p.m., the moon enters Taurus, where it is exalted and loves to be. So, this will be a time for us to focus on our pleasures, our comforts, get cozy in a blanket, order your favorite food, be a decadent bitch. Later on, around 7:30 p.m., the sun enters Capricorn and we have the winter solstice. When the sun enters Capricorn, this brings our attention to the future as well as the past, our foundation, the legacy we wish to leave behind, our goals, our accomplishments. This can be a really powerful time to get your shit together. And the winter solstice acts as a portal. It's the shortest day of the year and the longest night of the year, which brings our attention to the ways in which we use our energy and asks us to preserve our energy and really focus on what matters most. With that limited daylight, that kind of makes sense. In the witchy world, this is also a spooky day, and the veil is considered to be thin. So, this is a great day to petition and connect with your ancestors, give them a blessing or a gift and to tune into your intuition. And finally, around 9 p.m., the moon in Taurus is going to form a trine with Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. So, this is going to re illuminate our Mercury retrograde story, but kind of in a sweet way. This is a supportive trine. So, this does kick up communication, but perhaps it's a conversation that we're willing and maybe even excited to revisit. Or maybe you hear from someone that puts a smile on your face. Friday, December 22nd is a BFD for so many reasons. You might wake up with a lot of energy, and that is because the moon in Taurus is going to form a conjunction with Jupiter in Taurus. And Jupiter is a planet of exaggeration, abundance, support, and growth, but it's definitely an extra planet. The moon is our emotional world, our physical body, how we're feeling. So it's very possible you wake up to maybe some lucky news or an exciting event or opportunity. Now, what I'm personally really excited for is the Mercury cazimi in Capricorn taking place around 11 a.m. And for anyone who doesn't know what a cazimi is, it is when a planet sits in the heart of the sun. So this means that Mercury retrograde in Capricorn is going to meet up with the sun at the same point in the sky. And this actually gives us a temporary break or reprieve from Mercury retrograde. And that's because anytime a planet sits this closely with the sun, it gains strength and power. So this will bring a period of illumination, clarity. This is actually a really great time to share your thoughts, ideas, and feelings with others because that kind of typical Mercury retrograde misunderstanding clears up for a bit. So you'll want to make the most of this window. And later on, around 10 p.m., Mercury retrograde re enters Sagittarius. So it is backpedaling through the zodiac and it is moving into Sagittarius. where it last was on November 30th. So you'll want to think back to that time. What was going on in the weeks leading up to November 30th? What were you thinking about and focused on? What were topics of conversation? Who was entering and exiting your life? Because all of that stuff is coming back up for revision. Now, something else that is so important to mention with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is that Mercury struggles when it's in Sagittarius. It is in detriment. So it is kind of like word vomit everywhere. It's really easy to accidentally offend people, to say things you can't take back. So you'll really want to proceed with caution. Sagittarius is known to be a jokester, but sometimes jokes hurt. Sagittarius can also be incredibly dogmatic, and it's not necessarily the best listener. So, this can definitely bring debating energy, tense conversations, and some potential conflicts. Saturday, December 23rd is pretty easygoing for the most part. We're going to start out around 5 a.m. with the moon in Taurus forming a conjunction with Uranus in Taurus. Again, Uranus is that planet of sudden surprises, events, disruptions. And the moon always represents how we're feeling throughout the day. So it's very possible that you wake up early. It's hard to get back to sleep. Maybe there's some sort of sudden disruption in your early morning routine. Plans are changed. This is not the time to stick to a rigid schedule, but you might have to go with the flow and adapt a bit. Around 11 a.m., the moon in Taurus forms an opposition with Venus in Scorpio. And Venus is our planet of harmony, relationships, and ease. And oppositions are the nature of Saturn, which is one of the most challenging planets in astrology. So this can actually bring some sort of discord to our close connections. We might be craving more affection, but perhaps we're feeling rejected or isolated for some reason, or like our needs just aren't being met. But don't worry, because around 3 p.m., the moon in Taurus is going to connect with Neptune in Pisces. And this creates more of a easygoing, harmonious energy. And before I was preggo, this was one of my favorite aspects to get stoned to and just kind of like tune into my intuition, pull some cards. This can be a really lovely time to do spell work and engage the creative side of your brain. Healing conversations and connections may also become more of a priority during this time. And finally, around 10:30 p.m., the moon in Taurus will form a trine with Pluto in Capricorn. This brings depth to our connections. And you may also be reflecting on the ways in which your relationship to security in the material realm has evolved and transformed, and leaves you feeling a little bit more empowered and even with a deeper sense of stability. Sunday, December 24th is going to start out on a little bit of a rougher note, but the energy will ease up. Around 5 a.m., the moon in Gemini is going to form a square with Saturn in Pisces. So, for my mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, you might wake up a little grumpier. Maybe you're feeling disappointed about something. The moon in Gemini wants to have fun, is curious, playful, wants to exchange information and ideas. Saturn in Pisces is all about our responsibilities, our grief, the obligations that we've made in our lives, and our commitments that feel a little bit heavier and almost like burdens. So it is possible that in some way, some of our responsibilities need our focus, and we're going to have to put some of our personal desires on the back burner. Temporary feelings of rejection, loneliness, or depression can pop up, but this is a very quick and fleeting aspect. And later on, around 9:30 a.m., the sun in Capricorn is going to form a sextile with Saturn in Pisces. And what makes this so interesting is that the sun is now tracing over Mercury's steps. So this is going to bring us back to December 2nd when Mercury first met with Saturn, and also December 21st of this week when Mercury retrograde met with Saturn. Now the sun is tracing over those steps and illuminating the conversations that took place. So this can be an important aspect for making exciting commitments, progress, gaining more recognition for your mastery, your skills, and your expertise. And this is also a very stabilizing and grounding energy that helps you have those tougher conversations, whether it's boundary setting or making commitments or asking for more help with your personal or professional obligations and responsibilities. If you enjoyed your weekly horoscope, I host a daily horoscope podcast, Daily Horoscope for Your Zodiac Sign with Stephanie Campos. You can tune in anywhere you get your podcasts.